What is going on, Dodger fans? Hope you had a nice week. Thank you for listening to the Incline Dodgers podcast presented by TickPick and FanSided. This is Kevin Klein speaking. If you've been following the Dodgers this week, it has been one of the rockiest and bumpiest roads that I can ever recollect in my entire fandom in Dodgers world. I mean, this team was projected to win 110 plus games by many experts, and here they are on the brink of maybe not even getting 90 wins. They're 79-64. They've got, I think, a 1-game lead over the San Diego Padres for the National League West crown. But maybe even more importantly, and we'll dive into this discussion, they're now behind the Philadelphia Phillies by a number of games, and that bye could make the difference for a team with postseason and World Series aspirations. I'm joined by the host of the Outlet Forum. Chris Camello is in the building. Chris, I know there's so much Dodger stuff you want to dive into. Where do we even start?
Well, first of all, just if you want to know how I'm feeling, there's a reason why I'm wearing this hat. That's all I'm going to say. To quote Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about that. Yeah.
For the audio listeners, it's a Rams hat.
Yeah. No, Rams house came up with a big win today, and just being how distraught I was, like I purposely spite watched the NFL today in addition to not watching the Dodgers. So, but Kev, pleasure to be on with you despite the current turmoil that the LA Dodgers of 2025 are in. But I'm sure we're going to break that all down in the next hour or so. So let's get right into it, brother.
Absolutely. So the Dodgers were on the verge of being swept by a bad team in 2 consecutive series. Fortunately, they homered their way out of this one. I mean, Shohei Ohtani had a really nice day as a batter, hit a couple of home runs. He's now up to 48 home runs. He's one behind Kyle Schwarber for the National League in home runs, who has 49. So it was good to see Ohtani take advantage of the Orioles pitcher today, another Japanese fellow, Sugano. Ohtani was 3 for 3 entering the day against him, and then he hit some more home runs off that guy. So good for him. Mookie Betts seems to have turned the corner as well. He's been one of their hottest hitters. We'll talk more Mookie in a little bit, but Mookie Betts also had a home run. He's been a big component to the Dodgers offense these days. Not many positives when talking about the rest of the Dodgers lineup. And then Clayton Kershaw just continues to deal. He's been very consistent as one of the Dodgers back-end starters. On paper, he's actually been their second most valuable starting pitcher in terms of WAR. He's actually exceeded a 2 WAR now. Only Yoshinobu Yamamoto has a higher WAR for Dodgers pitchers. Kershaw had a season-high 8 strikeouts, seemed to keep the Orioles off balance for the first 5 innings, and then gave up a couple runs in the 6th inning until he had to be pulled for Henriquez. But the Dodgers kept this one in control, won the game, and finally turned a page with that 5-game losing streak. Any takeaways from today's game before we get into kind of the nasty stuff?
For sure. It was a win. And, sometimes when you're coming off of a devastating loss, a stunning loss of what happened Saturday night, where we should have been seeing history. We should have been seeing the first Dodger no-hitter since Clayton Kershaw did it in 2014. We were 1 out away, good swing on it by Jackson Holliday. It looked for a second that Pahès may have a chance, and then I thought it was going to just be a double off the wall. And then, of course, it ended up being a home run. And then after that, I understand pulling Yamamoto at that point, thinking Blake Trinan can come in and get us the final out here and avoid that. But that just did not happen. So to see them bounce back today is a positive sign. And sometimes, Kev, the best thing that could happen after a devastating loss is what? It's playing the next day. No flight home to dwell on it. No day off to think about it. It was an early game, early start time. Let's get after it. We got Kershaw on the mound. Let's see if we could string together some stuff because we played well enough to win. The silver lining in this series, they played well enough to win these games. But how they finished the 9th inning on Friday night with Tanner Scott, Saturday night with Scott, but more importantly was Blake Trinan. And then today putting it together. Solid performance from Kershaw. Ohtani set a tone early. Mookie Betts, who's had a really good series against the Orioles, stepped up and played well. And Robleski was him and Dreyer, the two homegrown Dodgers. No $72 million worth of salary right there. Just two guys making six figures, trying to make it in the MLB, got the big outs and protected the 3-run lead. So it was a solid win. You go home a little happier, and hopefully you could build on some of these, on a positive day like today, on a positive win, I should say.
Absolutely. Yeah. Make sure to hit that like button. If you got questions for me or Chris, you can drop them in the YouTube chat. We'll take questions throughout the show. Let's just get to Saturday night's game. Yoshinobu Yamamoto took a no-hitter into the 9th inning. He had 26 outs, meaning he was just literally 1 out away from throwing a no-hitter. And Chris already laid out who was the last Dodger to throw a complete game no-hitter. Would have been very fitting for the current Dodgers ace to get one in the record books. But maybe Matt Holliday needed to be punched in the balls a little bit harder, because somehow his offspring came to fruition to torment the Dodgers in kind of an innocuous way. But ultimately, he did break up the no-hitter with that solo home run. Definitely a bummer. I have to side with Dave Roberts. I think pulling Yoshinobu Yamamoto on 112 pitch count was a very rational decision. I mean, Yamamoto had only exceeded 100 pitches, I think, one time this season, and he is your star pitcher. You don't need to burn him to the ground in what looked like a commanding 3-1 lead at that point. You only need 1 out. You've got Blake Treinen, a 2-time World Series champion, being paid $11 million this year. And for whatever reason, Treinen just fell completely off the train tracks. He was wild with his command. He was hitting batters. He was walking batters. He walked a run in. Ultimately, Dave Roberts gave him the quick hook. At that point, then they go to Tanner Scott, and all Tanner Scott has to do is get 1 out, and then he throws another meatball down the middle. This guy is serving more meatballs than the macaroni grill these days, and the Orioles walk it off 4-3. So it was 3-0 with 2 outs in the 9th inning, and I don't ever recall a situation where the Dodgers lose that game.
And exactly, and that's what I was alluding to. And also, too, when you hear the reaction of Steven Nelson, of Oral, of all the Sportsnet LA guys who obviously, they're basically paid to be, I don't want to say Dodger homers, but they're obviously trying to find a silver lining in everything. They're running out of things to say that are positive with this team, especially on this road trip, which has been an absolute disaster. But even before that, Kev, losing 2 out of 3 in Arizona with a non-existent offense. And then, of course, the bullpen in Tanner Scott, as well as Kirby Yates, kind of let some of those games get away. And, Will Smith was able to save Scott last Sunday. Obviously we got to get into that and the injury and the impact that could be. But here's the thing. When you are also there's 2 things I want to say. One, when you're not playing well, this will sometimes start getting in the way. You could be a 15-time MVP. You could be an all-star, a gold glover, a silver slugger. I don't care. You're a human being. When you go through it, it starts getting in your head now. You start pressing, you start forcing the issue, you overthink, you overthrow, you start getting tight. You're not loose. And furthermore, you're not confident. And that's what I think, that aspect that's been toxic is slowly but surely spreading across a large portion of this Dodger clubhouse, honestly. And I think that's what you saw yesterday with Treinen. I think that's what you've been seeing with Tanner Scott, with Kirby Yates, with other guys. And that's one aspect of it, the confidence aspect. And you could apply that to the hitters, starting pitchers, position, relief pitchers, whatever. The other thing I want to say is there has been a problem with Dodger relievers. I don't care who it's been, with 2 things. One, walks. They are walking way too many guys lately. And that's really been a problem, I think, for like the last month. I don't care who it is. You could find any Dodger reliever that's been walking guys. And 2, the inability to put guys away with 2 strikes. And I mean strikeouts. So it's the worst of both worlds. We're putting guys on, and then we're pitching more to contact. So now these hitters are these opposing hitters are putting the ball in play, moving the runners over, and they're either and a single is now knocking in 2 runs, right? That has been a major problem with the Dodger relievers, to the point where even if they get into the playoffs, Kev, which I think they will. I'm not as confident today as I may have been 2 weeks ago. The strength of their team last year was the bullpen. Who is going to get the big outs for you and protect a 1, 2, 3 run lead? Because right now, you don't have many good, convincing options. So that is the big issue, and that was a big reason why they lost that game yesterday.
The 2 walks, the 2 outs thing has just been killing me lately. I mean, we had last night's game, 2 outs.
2 outs and 2 strikes.
There was a game recently where Kirby Yates had 2 quick outs, and then he fell on his face. Tanner Scott served up a fat home run with 2 outs recently as well. I just don't know what's going on with these 2-out approaches. But I wanted to get back to the Jackson Holiday home run because I think it's worth bringing up. There was some criticism from the broadcast and reports that the Dodgers internally felt like Andy Pahès didn't hustle for that ball. And ultimately, realistic expectations, I don't think Andy Pahès makes that catch. You would have to have Ichiro Suzuki probably in the outfield to make that catch. But it's the effort and the giving up that I think rubbed everyone the wrong way. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was why Andy Pahès sat in today's game, because the Dodgers are getting fed up with this laziness and the defeated and lack of effort attitude that you're seeing a lot. And Teoscar Hernandez, we'll talk about him in depth in a little bit, but he was on the bench too. And the Dodgers have called him out for some of his efforts on defense. And we're seeing some poor base running decisions as well. So I think it's the thought that counts with Pahès. Maybe you weren't going to catch that ball, but you read it terribly. You showed no effort. You didn't hustle. And it's just a trickle-down effect. You have to show that you're in it to win it. And Andy Pahès didn't show it in that moment.
I agree. Here's the thing. To say that it was a lack of effort, because we've seen Andy make some pretty incredible plays. Listen, Andy Pahès is in his first full season. Yes, it's his second year. First full season where he's basically had an everyday job. And it's been a solid season, all things considered. Are there going to be mistakes? Sure. Does he still have to mature on some things? Abso-freaking-lutely. I think overall he's done a solid job at the plate as well as defensively. Now, are there some things where, there is an effort aspect of it, or could he have run harder, or could he have made less of a bonehead play? I feel like a lot of those questions have come up over the last few months with Andy Pahès. However, it could also be, given that the fact that he's a young player, you got to expect some of these miscues. That's just what it is. Not to mention, when you are collectively playing lackluster 500 baseball and you see everyone else kind of going through the motions, monkey see, monkey do sometimes, Kev. You know what I mean? Not saying it's right, and I'm not trying to defend Andy in any perspective. Maybe he could have, I think he thought it was hit harder than maybe it was. And also, too, that wall is not flat where you can kind of jump up. There's a portion of that wall that sticks out a little bit, because I was even talking to my girl about it. I'm like, oh, that wall sticks out. So maybe it would have been kind of hard to actually try to go up and actually make a fantastic catch. Not saying he shouldn't have tried, but also, too, it's a little harder when there's an aspect of the wall sticking out where you can actually make, a great grab. You know what I'm saying? The setup is not the same as like Dodger Stadium or most outfield walls. That being said, the miscues, the base running, the lackluster outfield defense, the selfish at bats where you have the bases loaded and nobody out and grounding into double plays, I 100% agree with you. It is inexcusable. But to say that loss yesterday is purely on the shoulders of Andy Pahès is a little unfair, considering you're up 2 runs with 2 outs. Your World Series champion relievers and your $72 million useless, left-hander, all-star, whatever, needs to get a final out. So to me, it falls on them. And by the way, one more thing I wanted to say: 16 earned runs over the last 6 games over the last 7 games, for Dodger relief pitching.
It's I think yesterday's game, you can mostly pin that one on Blake Trinan. I mean, you 100%. Have to get that out. Inexcusable. Is it fair or foul for Tanner Scott to say baseball hates me right now?
To me, it's, when you're going through it, I think he may have said that a little bit facetiously. Nothing's working for him right now, and his confidence is shot. That's just what it is. This guy is a good pitcher. We've seen, I know it's hard for Dodger fans to see it in the moment. We've seen good stretches from him this year, Kev. Go back to some of the early struggles from like late April to early May and even some portion of June. He was fine. He was figuring it out after blowing some saves, but now it's like he's come back and we're all thinking, okay, the time off, the reset, the rehab assignment, he's going to come in, he's going to be locked in, more focused, he's figured it out. And he hasn't. And I think his confidence is purely shot right now. This is a mental game as much as it is physical. As much as everyone says, oh, he could throw 98, he could throw 99. You got to be able to pitch, though. You got to be able to miss bats. You got to be able to induce soft contact. He's doing none of that right now. When he's missing, it almost reminds you of Michael Grove. Michael Grove has good stuff, but when he misses, what happens, Kev? I shouldn't have to tell you this. He gets hammered hard, and that's where Tanner Scott is right now. So is it physical? Is it mental? Is it coaching? Are they getting it wrong? Connor McGinnis and Mark Pryor? Maybe. I think it's a combination of everything right now. So for him to say baseball hates me, the way I hear that is, I don't know, the baseball gods are against me right now. I can't seem to figure this out, and neither can anyone else around me.
Yeah,
I'm in a trench taking grenades.
I
from
lean
everybody.
more. That's a foul comment. Like, stop making excuses. You're throwing your pitches down the middle. And the other day, he made another comment about the Dodgers pitching approach. I think saying, God, it's something about the strikes. Like, he needs to throw more pitches. Or what did he say? God. Anyways, he said something about the approach with the strikes. But it's like, Tanner Scott, your pitches are down the middle. Learn to hit the corners, or don't be afraid to throw it a little out of the zone, get some swings and misses. I wanted to ask you, if the playoffs started tomorrow, does Tanner Scott make the postseason roster?
Can I just say one more thing about last night's pitch to Emmanuel Rivera, who I believe had the walk-off 2-run single? That was actually, I know everyone, I'm about to get crushed right now. That wasn't an awful pitch. It was below the strike zone that Rivera reached down to get, actually. It wasn't low enough. It was sort of a borderline strike, maybe an inch off the strike zone that Rivera lined into center field. So doesn't matter. You're right. He couldn't miss a bat. That's been his issue. Your question was, if the playoffs were to start tomorrow, does he make the roster as a reliever? I think right now, I don't believe he does. Personally. However, there's two counters to this. One, you saw Cody Bellinger didn't make the playoff roster in the 2022 NLDS against the Padres because he was not playing well. They completely went away from Cody Bellinger because the struggles became real. So the Dodgers are not afraid to do that. However, I think in Tanner Scott's case, they know his talent. They know what he's capable of. And furthermore is, who else do you trust in that pen? That's the thing. It's like, if you leave Scott out, great. Who do you replace him with? Right. You know what I mean? That is the big issue with all of this. And I think Robleski is turning in to a decent option. I like Justin Robleski. I think he's had a solid year. Yeah, he's had some moments here and there where he's gotten tagged and given up some runs, but I think he's got some tremendous potential. I think he's taken a step forward this year. But is everyone here, including you, Kev, going to tell me you genuinely trust Justin Robleski over a guy like Tanner Scott? Because I really don't. I think it's a wash. At best, it's a wash. That's me.
That one pitch might not have been down the middle, but the one to the Orioles rookie catcher who's 21 and hitting 204. I know he's a top prospect, but Samuel Basallo, that was down the middle for a walk-off home run.
That for sure. It was. I was talking about Rivera, but you're talking about Friday night. Yeah,
that one was putrid. Robleski or no, I think you have to just go with Tanner Scott based off the pedigree. But here's a hot take. Kershaw for 3 outs or Tanner Scott for 3 outs. I might lean Clayton Kershaw right now at this point. That's how desperate and bad it's gotten.
And here's the thing. Just because Tanner Scott makes the playoff roster does not mean he's going to be in high leverage situations. He could be in low leverage situations. He could be facing the bottom of the lineup in the 5th inning. You know what I'm saying? And that's already how the Dodgers like to stack up their bullpen where, you remember last year, we would see Treinen in like the 6th, 7th inning, and then you would see Kopech here or Vestia there, or maybe see Kopech as the first guy out or Ryan Brazier or somebody like that, right? It really all depends on the matchups. And I think a healthy Vestia also makes things a little bit more difficult for Scott to understand what his role is, because now it's like, if I can't handle high leverage situations, what good am I? And guess what, Kev? We said the same thing about Kenley Jansen. Remember when he was struggling to close out games? We were saying, well, if Kenley Jansen's not your ninth inning guy, it's not like you could just say, oh, just put him in the 7th or the 8th. No, it's you have to really either not use him at all, or you got to put him in the lowest of the low or emergency situation, leverage type situations, low level or emergency use.
Jansen,
that's it.
Kenley Jansen had some low points in his Dodgers tenure, but he was never this low and as bad as Tanner Scott's been, which is just miraculous. Or more credit to Jansen, because Tanner Scott's in the thick of his prime right now. He's fresh on a new $72 million contract, and he's just been a total disaster. And not my point earlier was not to knock Kershaw. Actually, it was more of a credit to Kershaw, because unlike Tanner Scott, he's been able to locate his pitches, and I feel like that is going to be more of an important factor right now if the Dodgers need to get 3 outs. So we'll see what the Dodgers put into consideration, but yeah, I mean, Kershaw might have to close some games, which sounds insane, but we've gotten to that desperate point. I think it's important to talk about Teoscar Hernandez, so I highlighted no names comment. Need to get rid of that Teo contract after we get bounced in the wild card. I don't know about the wild card part yet. I'm not going that far, but the Teo contract and the Teoscar Hernandez situation in general is a head scratcher. He was a no-brainer to re-sign. He had a phenomenal year one with the Dodgers. He's a postseason hero, clearly helped us win a World Series. He started off this year pretty good too. I mean, he's got the home runs, the RBIs. I've talked about this last week, but since August 6th, this is his worst stretch he's ever had in Dodger blue. He's got a 185 batting average, a measly 228 on base percentage, a total of 543 OPS, 46 weighted runs created plus, just 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, and his normal about 29% strikeout rate. Throw it all together with the awful defense he continues to provide. This has been a disappointing year. There's no other way to phrase it at this point. Teoscar Hernandez has been a total disappointment now.
Couldn't agree more. And Teo's my guy. This was the guy that I thought was going to be a difference maker last year with the Dodgers. I said, if you're going to go after Ohtani, you got to get another stable presence in that lineup who could also play the outfield. And they did that. You know what I mean? And I thought he was going to have the type of impact, not just on the team, but within the Los Angeles community, Kev. That was the other aspect. And of course, everybody wanted him back. I thought the contract was fair. I thought if nothing else, you'll get those first couple of years will probably be the best years. Then that third year is going to be And I believe the 4th year is a club option, in typical Dodger fashion. They always put the club option there. They did that with Chris Taylor. They've done that with other players in the past as well. I think the issue goes back to the beginning of the season. Why did you even stick him out there in right field? You won a World Series with him in left, but no. We're gonna make our outfield defense even worse. One, moving Mookie Betts out of right and putting him at shortstop, and then we're gonna sign a below average defensive outfielder in Conforto that we hope could make up for it with his bat, and that's been a complete disaster. But my thinking was Conforto, who's a career right fielder, was going to come in and play right, and Teo would stay in left. When they said, oh, no, we're putting these two, I'm like, okay, I hope that works. And so far, it's been a disaster. And with all the geeks and the nerds, and I say that as love and affection of the Dodger front office and all these guys working on equations to give them an edge, nobody sees that is a problem. Or are these guys so caught up in, we're going to get this right, I'm going to be right, you're going to be wrong, because they're the reigning World Series champions, that now the ego has supplanted, the numbers and the statistics and the analytics. Now you want to abandon that. That's funny to me, Friedman. That's funny to me, Gomes. That's funny to me, Josh Burns or whoever else is in that front office, Stan Kasten. Now you abandoned it, and now you're stuck. You didn't improve the outfield. Obviously Edman's been hurt. Kike's been hurt. A lot of guys have been hurt. I totally understand that. But this has been a problem for a while, and you guys could have fixed it earlier, and you didn't. So you know what? I'm still going to put on Teo, lack of effort and everything like that. I think the hamstrings have been a problem this year. And I think even he underestimated right field being as physically demanding as it is. However, this is also on Dave, and this is on the front office for not fixing
I think
it
their
sooner.
heads are so far up their asses now that they're just blinded by the reality. And I think, unfortunately, the poor defense has kind of affected Teoscar's overall confidence. And now it's being correlated to a piss poor offensive showing. And it's a shame because, I mean, it's like the NBA. If you're having an off night on defense, you'll see it affect their shot in a game because you're like, oh crap,
Sure.
I'm not helping my team. And I think that is perfectly carried over to the Major League Baseball as well. If you're struggling defensively, you have some errors, you best believe you're probably thinking about that, especially if it's fresh off when you're in the batter's box. So I don't like this Dodgers approach. I don't get why they're making things more harder than it needs to be. You had a recipe that was super successful last year, and they've just completely strayed away from it. And so now the Dodgers have to ask themselves this offseason, what do we do with the outfield? So that brings me to the next segment. Bob Nightingale, who is one of the best in the business, he's been on the show a few times, wrote a new article this morning, and the big name in free agency is going to be Kyle Tucker. So what does Bob Nightingale drop in his article? He said, after talking to some rival executives, the belief is that the Dodgers are the favorites right now to sign Kyle Tucker. Let's just do a general overview with that statement, Chris.
Okay. I'm not trying to take the wind out of your segment here. I don't care right now. Kyle Tucker doesn't help solve any issues for this year. Next year, great. You know, he's a fantastic player. I called him on this show, by the way, as a potential MVP candidate. I know he went through a really horrid stretch himself in, was it July or August, as did the Cubs, by the way. So he's also gone through his struggles at times this year. No doubt about it. This guy is a middle of the lineup. He's got pop. He could play right field. You know, and he's still relatively young, and he's already played like, you know, he's already been an all-star. He's a World Series champion. And no, he was not on the cheating Astros team. Kyle Tucker didn't come onto the scene, I think, until 2019.
Yeah, he basically replaced
he's a fantastic. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so he's a good player. However, at the same point in time, I just don't know if you need another star as much as you need someone who could come in, know who they are as a player, as a hitter, and more importantly, as a fielder, and play that position well. That's the thing. Not to mention, you're not going to get off of Teo's contract right now. Just like, by the way, the Phillies trying to get off of Nick Castellanos. Good luck with that, because they're going through the same problems. Castellanos and Teo are basically mirrors of each other right now in their respective teams. So I can't expect them to get off of these contracts, not unless the Dodgers are willing, or the Phillies for that matter, willing to eat a large chunk of that. The Dodgers are not going to do that. They're not going to pay Teoscar Hernandez to play against them, a la, quoting Brad Pitt from Moneyball. So anyway, it's a nice idea. We'll probably have plenty of time while we're freezing our rears off during the wintertime to talk about that. I just don't think this is a good story for us to talk about now. And to be quite honest, I don't care.
It's relevant in a sense, which I'll cover that aspect in a second. But with Teoscar Hernandez, this isn't a hindsight take. This is just kind of like the reality. The reason executives didn't want to give him multiple years is because the reality is he's a designated hitter. Now he can kind of play the outfield, but is he really much of a better defender than like a JD Martinez, for example? Probably not. So the Dodgers were willing to bite the bullet with the defense, which I was fine with, because just like you, Chris, I thought they were just going to throw him out there in left field. And left field is kind of the one defensive position that you can get away with. It's not going to really bite you that much. But when you have an awful defender in right field, well, it's going to show, and you're going to notice it really quick. So the Dodgers are going to need to figure something out quickly this offseason, because I don't think he has much trade value. Also, I just don't think the Dodgers would trade him in general, because you have to get rid of, or you have to replace the Michael Conforto spot. I don't think they have the guys in the farm system yet who can be immediately called upon for 2026. That's more of maybe a second half story. But Kyle Tucker at this point, he's kind of a need. Like, they don't have to go to that extent, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the headlines this winter. The Dodgers are in the front of the line to try to sign Kyle Tucker.
I don't disagree with anything you just said. But there were two words you said: this winter. Yes, we will talk about that this winter. The other aspect that I think will dictate whether or not they go after Kyle Tucker is two things. One, how, like everyone is on the chat is saying right now, how do we move off of the Teoscar Hernandez contract? And two more words for that. Good luck. Two, if the alignment of Pahès and right, Tommy Edman when he comes back playing center, and Teo and left works for the final weeks of the season and potentially into October, I think some of those talks with Kyle Tucker will cool down. Because if you are saying he's basically a DH, well, we don't have a need for, or the Dodgers don't have a need for a DH right now, Kev. You know, what's he going to do? We're going to sign another overpriced, substandard defensive outfielder who's got some pop, but even he has shown that he is prone to struggling, even though he's in his prime. So what the hell is he going to do for us then? If you're going to go after an elite outfielder, here's a word of advice, Friedman. Go after an elite outfielder, not a good hitter who happens to play outfield. And there is a difference.
Kyle Tucker, I would consider elite. The issue with him right now is he's just
hold on. Elite in one aspect, hitting or field? Because you just said he's basically a DH.
No, I was talking about Teoscar as the DH.
Oh shoot. Okay, my bad.
No,
I misunderstood that.
Kyle Tucker usually above average defender, not necessarily in the upper echelon, but serviceable. The reason he's struggling this season or this stretch is he's dealing with like a wrist or a hand injury. I think he's got like a microfracture, so that's part of the reason he's been slumping. So if he can get that recovery, he was, like you said, an MVP candidate the first 2 months of the season, and a big reason the Cubs were near the front of the pack, especially offensively. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Dodgers kind of address this outfield. This was a huge sticking point and something I kept hammering and beating the horse to death, that the Dodgers need to acquire not a top tier outfielder, but a starting outfielder during the deadline. And they failed to do so. They got Alex Call. He's average to slightly below average, in my opinion, and not someone that they're going to start in meaningful games. And hence that just gives them more run for whatever reason to give Conforto meaningful at bats. Now he's batting cleanup in 5th for the Dodgers. I'm vomiting in my mouth as I have to accept this reality. I can't believe it. But fortunately, Max Muncy is expected to be activated off the injured list and in the Dodgers starting lineup tomorrow, which is Monday, against the Rockies. And I think, assuming he's healthy, we're going to see the offense really turn around because he's kind of been the glue guy.
He has. I mean, I know he got off to a really rough season. He's had some good moments and whatnot, and obviously it's been a tough season for him as far as injuries. Really, from July on, you know, he was out for most of July, came back in August, and then he got hurt again during that series against the Angels in mid-August, and obviously he hasn't been out. He hasn't been back since. So yeah, that's going to be a positive presence in the lineup as well as the field. As well. I mean, no more Buddy Kennedy and Freeland and all these other guys that they've had a revolving door around over at third base. But no, you'll have a steady presence there. And Alex Vesia too is a guy that, you know, is capable of getting big outs in big situations. But even he's gone through some struggles. So who knows what he's going to look like when he comes back as well. I wanted to get to one of the comments that Dennis Gonzalez said. Arozarena and Nootbaar won't be free agents until 27 and 28, respectively. Those are two guys I'd love for the Dodgers to get, maybe in a trade. I like Lars Nootbaar, former USC, right? USC Trojan. So for him to play, you know, where the Dodger blue would be like a dream come true for him. And he's a leadoff caliber hitter. Good, solid defensively. You know, he can get on base. I mean, I wouldn't say he's the best bat in the world, but he's not horrible either. And he's pretty good defensively. We saw him make that amazing catch against Mookie Betts' blooper when the Cardinals were in town last month. So that's definitely somebody I would like to get. Arozarena, you know, once again, might be a little overpriced and not great defensively either. Not horrible defensively, but not great. So I would go the more of the route of Lars Nootbaar, but I won't be mad at either one. So.
I like them both. I think they're both reasonable acquisitions and targets for the Dodgers. Thank you guys for asking your questions. We will continue to answer your guys' good questions. So drop them below in the YouTube chat and hit that like button if you haven't. No name, would you get rid of Van Scoyoc or Mark Pryor? So I'll start with this. Of the two, I think Van Scoyoc is the more likely candidate to get let go. What I would foresee happening for him to actually get let go, though, if the Dodgers get bounced in the wild card round for whatever reason and their offense just didn't show up, I think that's enough of a reason to get rid of him. Now, if the Dodgers make it to the NLCS, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to get rid of him after maybe one down year after they're coming off a World Series win. I think Mark Prior is still relatively safe. I think he has done enough during his Dodgers tenure, and they're just going to chalk it up as one bad year. So I don't think Mark Prior is anywhere close to being terminated right now.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Van Scoyoc, the noise has gotten loud the last few years. And yes, a World Series championship is the ultimate elixir, Kev. It covers a lot of things. It makes sure people come back into their respective roles. But I just kind of feel like at this point, the offense, this situation with the offense is not a new issue. It's one that has kind of reoccurred over the last few years. And I think if they get bounced early, and I mean, you could just see the numbers collectively are down this year. And with this much talent, this many MVP candidates, this many all-stars, for them to have this type of a rocky season offensively and to be that bad with runners on base, that bad with the bases loaded, that bad with 2 men on and less than 2 outs, that's a major issue. So yeah, I agree. I think Van Scoyoc would be the first to go, but I think then Prior gets put into the pressure cooker as well. So I don't think it's not like, Prior is good for the next 2-3 years. No, he could also be fired. Coaches get fired. It happens. Great defensive coordinators in the NFL get fired. Assistants in the NBA get fired. That is the nature of this business. So you don't do your job and it's reflective of the players and whatnot, whether that's fair or not. Life isn't fair.
Yeah.
So, but I think with this issue with Van Scoyoc, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's been a problem for a while, and this would be the time to go into a different direction.
Yeah, I just think from kind of a top-down perspective, it's a lot easier to move off of Van Scoyoc and some of his guys than it would to get rid of Mark Prior, because then you're completely revolutionizing their pitching development, because it's not really the Mark Prior show. He's kind of the face of it, but you talked about, McGinnis is one guy, and
Josh Bard.
Exactly. So there are a number of cooks in the kitchen. So if you get rid of the head of the dragon, I would expect more guys would get axed. And if they bring in someone reputable, he's going to want to bring in his guys. And it might just get complicated. And you could see the next year things get messy as well, because then the Dodgers pitchers, all of a sudden they have a new pitching coach and a new philosophy, and they're going to have to change some things. So it'd be a very hefty investment. And I just don't think the Dodgers are ready to do that right now. I was frustrated that the Dodgers just couldn't get to Dean Kremer, former prospect who they traded for Manny Machado. Not only that, he had to come out of the game with forearm tightness, and he's had a pretty mediocre season. What I was getting at here and why I brought it up is because on the other side, when Shohei Ohtani had to step up and pitch last second because Tyler Glasnow got scratched with the back injury, this was like the most tenacious attitude I've seen from Shohei Ohtani on the mound during his last inning in the 4th inning, or the 5th inning, I guess, for that to correct myself, because he pitched 4.1 innings. He was just emptying the tank. He was throwing 101 after 101. You could see the look on his face. He was frustrated with the Dodgers offense, but I liked this side of Ohtani. He really impressed me in this series. I mean, he always impresses me. But this was a good sign to see from Ohtani. Had the 2 home runs today. That start, he was impressive. They took him out after 70 pitches. But the fact that he's throwing 101, I'm excited for Ohtani to start some games in October.
Yeah, I mean, he's, these last couple of starts have been very positive, I got to say. And, and it wasn't looking good. He had a rough start against Colorado and a loss. He had a rough finish, I should say, against the Angels where they got to him. And all of a sudden it was starting to look like, oh man, is this guy starting to wear down? Is the conditioning just not there that it needs to be at this juncture of the season? But he's rallied. He's gotten a second win. And the starts have been more productive. The problem I have with Shohei at this point is, I can't say confidently if the Dodgers are going to use him 5 to 6 innings. You would almost need to have either a Kershaw or a Sheehan ready to go coming out of the pen. You know what I mean? Just because it's just as important to have him, maybe even more important, to have him healthy as he can be and as fresh as he can be as a hitter, because he is still the leadoff man. So yeah, you want him to be productive as a pitcher, 100%. Absolutely. And he still can be. If he can give you 4 to 5 innings of 1 or 2 runs, you'll take that all day long. And then from there, if he can get you that 5th inning, you won't even need to use a Sheehan. You could go to, whatever high leverage guys are hot at that point in the 6th to the 9th inning. So, but no, I think I definitely I agree with you. I loved what I saw from him pitching the other night. He had a great day at the plate, approaching what is he approaching now? 50 home runs once again. Yeah, no. So he's going to get there again. Yeah, he's at 48 right now, so he's doing well. The batting average is a little lower than I thought it would be. The RBIs are down, but when you're batting leadoff, sometimes it's not the opportunities aren't there. But it's really good to see Shohei rally after a couple of those rough starts in August and starting to really look like a new pitcher so far here in September and late August. So, yeah.
Usually entering the season, there are high expectations, and you kind of expect the Dodgers to avoid to get the bye and avoid a wild card round. Now I can't seem to wrap my head around and figure out how the heck the Dodgers are going to put together a game plan to have starters in the wild card round and then have guys in the NLDS. We got a dog party here. So I'm thinking that the Dodgers might have to go Yamamoto game 1, Blake Snell game 2, and then maybe Shohei Ohtani starts game 1 of the NLDS if they get there. Or, if they play a game 3 in a wild card round, this is going to be the hardest decision. I don't know if you go Ohtani, you go Tyler Glasnow, who hasn't exactly had the best postseason track record. I don't think they would go Klein and Kershaw. But this is just an interesting can of worms that I'm not happy about.
Well, what's funny was we were saying, oh man, they're sitting around for that week, the wild card week. Yeah. We've been saying that the last 3 years. They're sitting around. They've been eliminated twice in the NLDS because the teams that were coming off of those rounds, the Padres in 22, as well as the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2023, it didn't seem to affect them at all. They used that momentum going right into Dodger Stadium and played well. The Padres played well those first 2 games, even though they lost game 1. I remember they played well enough to win game 1. They won game 2 against Kershaw. And then, of course, they took the next 2 in San Diego. With the Arizona series, Arizona won 2 games. They didn't go the distance like the Padres did the year before. Arizona handled their business. So they had, I think it was Brandon Pfaadt going in game 1 for them, I think, or was it Merrill Kelly? It may have been Merrill Kelly, actually. It was Merrill Kelly, actually. It was Gallen and Pfaadt who pitched against Milwaukee, and then Kelly went in game 1 against the Dodgers, and then, of course, they smoked. Exactly, that's right. Pfaadt, I think, helped close them out. The thing is, the Dodgers, if anyone could handle this situation from a pitching perspective, I think it's the Dodgers, even if the thing were to go the distance, because I think you feel comfortable enough going Yamamoto, Snell, and I would say maybe Glasnow in a game 3 situation. Those would probably be your top 3 starters. And even if you decide to go maybe Kershaw in a game 3, because he's been your stopper this year, Glasnow starts game 1. That's not a bad option. Game 1, potentially at home or on the road. Even though, he's dealing with the back stiffness right now, hopefully that isn't something, knock on wood, that it's just more precautionary and low level and not. But then again, with Glasnow, it starts off that way, and then all of a sudden, he's gone for 2 months. My point being is, if anyone can handle the situation, it's them. Not to mention, is this the year that they need to play in the wild card round to basically humble themselves and say, hey, you put yourselves in this position. What are you going to do? Your backs are against the wall. Go win a couple of games. Otherwise, you're done. I don't
like that having to be an NLDS date with the Philadelphia Phillies on the road.
But Kev, you can't have it both ways either. You can't say they're sitting around, no momentum for a week while these other teams are hot coming off of a wild card round, and the Dodgers have been sitting around with no momentum. Or you could say, oh man, I don't like the scenario, and now they're forced into it. You know what I mean? Like,
I know that's a popular take. I've never been in that camp. I don't think playing extra games where you set yourself up for elimination is ever beneficial. My issue with the Dodgers in the past, when they had the bye, wasn't exactly being cold. It was just the lack of preparation. And that was definitely a thing because we freaking heard from Max Muncy after the World Series win, or maybe it was during the run. He said, we got to freaking get off our asses. We got to watch these games. We have to have watch parties. We have to scout these teams so we know what to expect. Because I can guarantee you when they got blindsided by the Padres, they didn't change their approach. They probably put in minimal effort to scout these guys. They probably went on a little vacation. They went to the Ritz-Carlton Resort and Spa and had a little masseuse and spa day because they looked soft in that series. Last year, they looked tough. I think you always want to have a bye, and unfortunately, the Dodgers just doesn't seem like it's going to happen this year. The Phillies are, I think, 4 up now, maybe 5, and they've got 3 left with the Phillies, so that's going to be a huge series. They're going to have to sweep them if they want a shot for this bye.
Yeah. By the way, Bills just went final. That they made a great comeback and beat the Ravens 41-40. They were 1.5 dogs going into that game, so I just wanted to point that out.
81 points.
I thought it was going to be like a 24-21 game.
Off hipster with the question. For high leverage, is Vesia, Sheehan, Henriquez, and Dreyer enough for the postseason? Absolutely not. That is nowhere near enough. You need to have Blake Trinan figure it out. You need Michael Kopech to get into season shape. I want to see more consistency from Tanner Scott, obviously. I think Ben Kasparius has the potential to be high leverage if he can just continue to build some positive outings. But again, going to continue to hammer this point home all season. They had an opportunity to get a high leverage reliever. There were a ton of names floating out there, and they went the Walmart route. They got Brock Stewart, and they got four outings. I think 2 of them were very mediocre, and he's probably out for the season. So you did it to yourselves, Dodgers or Friedman, whatever.
Well, and also too, this goes back, the lack of activity at the trade deadline goes back to what Friedman said over the offseason. We attacked this offseason believing we had, between what we had in place and what we added, that we did not need to be big time buyers at the trade deadline. And I think it reminds me of what the Lakers didn't do in the 21-22 season when they had an opportunity to get off of Russell Westbrook's contract and, basically give LeBron and Anthony Davis an out and say, go after John Wall and we'll figure it out and blah, blah, blah. No, you're going to figure it out with Westbrook. This is who you guys wanted. You guys figure it out. And I think that type of mindset trickled in with Andrew Friedman saying, you know what? We spent a lot of money on these guys. We are hopeful that they're going to figure this out. So we are not going to mortgage more of our farm system, even though it's a good farm system, to go out and get guys that may or may not help us. Not to mention the asking prices were probably high. So that was probably another reason that they didn't want to get rid of the Ryan Wards of the world or anybody like that. So I think that also played into it. However, I do agree. They still should have gotten at least one high leverage reliever, maybe a Griffin Jacks. I think
Guy Finnegan was lights out until he got hurt.
Yeah, exactly. Or somebody like that. But you know what I'm saying? You didn't need to go after maybe like a Duran. Like what the Phillies actually needed a closer. I mean, Romano was a bust. They lost guys in the offseason. Alvarado was hurt. They needed to go after a Duran. The Dodgers didn't necessarily need like an elite all-star closer, but they needed a really good, reliable late innings guy. I think just in case Yates and Scott did not figure it out. And I think that aspect has backfired on them. So they bet on what they did in the offseason. However, I have coined this offseason $400 million of useless. Like Charles Barkley once said about Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, 14 feet are useless, man. The Dodgers offseason, $400 million of uselessness from all 5 of those guys. Yes, including Blake Snell, and definitely yes, included Roki Sasaki.
Nando 390 bringing up a good point. Ohtani seemed annoyed with rushing. In that outing, rushing was initially calling balls and strikes, and then Ohtani switched over to PitchCom, and he was the one calling pitch and balls and strikes for himself. But what is interesting with the rushing point, he obviously got hurt and now is on the injured list. And the Dodgers find themselves in kind of a weird situation where they've got 2 minor league catchers now as their 1 and 2 guys. You've got Ben Rortvedt, who's been their everyday catcher now. And he's actually been better than I expected. He's got a few base hits, nearly caught Yamamoto's no hitter. and then they had to call up Chucky Robinson, I believe is his name, to be the backup guy. And you mentioned Will Smith. They said that he's going to probably be nursing his hand injury for the rest of the season, but he could be in the Dodgers lineup as soon as Monday. Obviously, Will Smith is even more important with the bat. So I really hope we get Will Smith in this lineup ASAP. But I think most importantly, when it comes to Will Smith, just be healthy for the postseason, because that's when we're going to need him most. Like, I'm not even worried about the Dodgers missing the playoffs. I don't think that's even a scenario, even though they're 1-5 in September. I just need this team to be healthy. We haven't seen Edman in over a month. He's had a really disappointing season. I think that's mostly attributed to the injury. Of course, Max Muncy's been dealing with injuries, and Hae-Sung Kim just hasn't been the same guy ever since his hot start. Got hurt with the shoulder, and I just don't think he's recovered from it. I would expect almost nothing from Kim in October.
Oh, for sure. I mean, maybe he comes in and, is a defensive replacement or a pinch runner or something. But if you're thinking that some of these guys are going to come in and save the Dodgers at this point, you just got another thing coming. But I agree. Chucky Robinson, they called him up, but Ben Yortvet, or Yortvet, whatever his name is, say it one more time. Rortvet. Did a solid job. I mean, he's from the Tampa Bay Rays organization, also played, I think, with the Yankees. So he's had some moments in the big leagues already. And for a guy to be able to come in, be able to try to anchor this pitching staff, I mean, hell, he almost had a no-hitter on his resume. It's like a guy acing a test when he only had 10 minutes to study. He nearly pulled that out on Saturday night. So I think what you have there is somebody who could at least stabilize the pitching staff. And then if he's able to do that, then we'll take whatever he gives us offensively. And offensively, he hasn't been bad either. I saw some of his numbers on Saturday as well as today, and he's pretty good. And with Robinson, I think he used to be with the Angels. He's just going to be a backup until Will Smith is able to get healthy, or at least able to manage the pain enough so he could get back to going behind the plate. For a second, I almost thought they were going to bring back Austin Barnes.
I thought so too.
I know they called up what's his face, Robinson, but I thought you could have had Rortvet and I know I'm saying that wrong, Rortvet and Barnes together, to kind of stabilize this, because at least Barnes knows the pitching staff and he knows the system. And
I thought so too. I don't think Chucky Robinson is going to see a single at bat for the Dodgers, to be honest. I think Rortvet's now the guy until Will Smith's healthy, and then rushing eventually. We're getting down to the final legs of the show, so I want to encourage anyone to ask questions if you had anything else for me and Chris. Appreciate Chris hopping on with me tonight. It's been a frustrating Dodgers week. Hit that like button if you haven't yet. We got a few more questions, and then I got to talk about Oasis real quick. So, Dennis Gonzalez, what's the outlook on Brusdar Graterol? I think the outlook at this point is there is no outlook. It doesn't even sound like the Dodgers are optimistic that he's coming back to pitch for them this season. Kind of like a Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy. Just don't expect it to be real at this point. I think for Graterol, there's no outlook.
I agree. I think your chances are better with Kyle Hurt at this point. And even that is going to be a reach, because we've seen this before. Guys are in AAA. They're doing rehab assignments in, early to mid-September. We saw with Gonsolin last year. He never got called up, or he never got activated. We saw that with Walker Buehler the year before. It's just the guy. We got to get to that comment in a sec. I think your chances are at this point, even if Graterol does come back, what's he going to look like against big league hitters? If he's not on a rehab assignment by now, it's not going to look good. So like I said, if you want to look at someone who could maybe come in and catch lightning in a bottle, Kyle Hurt has a better shot at that than Brusdar Graterol.
Manuel, the guy on the left looks like Pau Gasol's son. What's funny about this comment is I feel like every year someone makes this comment, and I kind of see it, but at the same time, I don't totally see it, because I'm not 7 feet tall. I'm also not Spanish descent. But yeah, I get the Pau Gasol nod. So I'll take it. I think he's a handsome looking guy.
Yeah. Kev, what year were you born again? I was just going to say, was it after the 2010 championship? Pal may have had a fun night. Who knows?
I'm a little too old for that, I think, because I'm in my 30s. I don't think
No, I know.
Gasol had kids at like
Yeah, thanks.
12.
Thanks for taking the wind out of my punchline, No, but that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. Maybe Pau Gasol's cousin or something.
Yeah. Bruce Davis, what about Brock Stewart? Well, we'd already talked about Stewart being injured. I don't think Brock Stewart's going to be thrown for the Dodgers again this season. Hopefully not ever again, to be honest, because this guy is always hurt. And Jake Reiner's going to have to owe me some pizza because I told him he would have an ERA over 3 with the Dodgers, and I'm looking pretty locked in right now. So I'm going to enjoy that pizza thanks to Jake and that bet we made. I'm a Brock Stewart hater and skeptic, unfortunately.
I go back to this with Brock Stewart. Remember, the deal was reported, but the Dodgers took hours to actually announce it on their social media and to make an official announcement on their end from their PR department. And there were already question marks about his shoulder, right, during that time. So, I thought for a second that maybe the Dodgers would have pulled out of the deal, a la Rob Pelinka with, Mark Williams in the deal with the Hornets this past February at the trade deadline, where it's like, there's just too many questionable things on this physical. And you know what? We're not going to take any chances at this point. But hey, they took a chance thinking, maybe the shoulder's all right. Maybe it's something small. Maybe he's recovered off of it, but it hasn't. The same issue that they were concerned about ended up biting them. So, and I agree. I don't think he was ever going to be like if you thought this guy was going to come in and be an automatic high leverage, retire the side in order, that was never going to be the case. I saw him as somebody who could be, like a Brazier type, can get you some big outs, but you're not going to trust him in the highest of the highest leverage points as part of this bullpen. So it's a shame it's backfired. And right now, I mean, I don't know where the cavalry is. It's nowhere. It's Vesia, maybe Kyle Hurt, and that's it. So
I want you to think on this point, or on this last point, Chris. Give me your final thoughts or anything else you want to talk about, but hold that for a second as you think about that. Oasis was the reunion of the century. I've been a fan of Oasis for a long, long time now. Never thought they'd get back together. Jumped on those ticket sales immediately. And last night, I've been to a lot of concerts. This was at the Rose Bowl, huge venue, nightmare to get to if you've ever been to the Rose Bowl. Parking situation, horrendous. You have to walk or take the shuttle from downtown, Old Town Pasadena. But yeah, I've been to a lot of concerts. I didn't think anyone new would crack the top 10 for me, but Oasis managed to put that feat together. It was an incredible show, and they blew me away. Absolutely amazing. If you don't listen to Oasis, I don't know what you're doing with yourself. Check them out. Great band. Awesome reunion. Chris, final thoughts or anything else we should talk about before we get on out of here?
Today is going to be the day that they're going to throw it back to you, Kev. No, I one of my favorite songs, Wonderwall, Oasis. You're right. Very underrated, underappreciated band. A lot of good hits. Last thing I want to say with this Dodger team, you can be a bad defensive team, but really good offensively. You could have a bad bullpen, but still have really good starting pitching. You could have, as the Dodgers proved last year, a sparse starting rotation, but a very good bullpen. But when you are bad defensively, when you have bad relief pitching, when you are not focused, when you are not running the bases well, when you are not hitting well in right situations, how do you expect to put together a sustained model of excellence? How do you expect to win 8 out of your next 11? How do you expect to win a series? When it doesn't matter the competition. You have to be able to control how you're playing. That's what it comes down to. So for this Dodger team, what I want to see over the next, I believe, 20 games, 19 games at this point, I just want to see more consistency. I want to see better focus, more intensity, because four games behind the second bye. That's all you have at this point. And by the way, you're only 1 game up on the Padres for the division. So you could very well be a true wild card team, not a division winner, not one of the top 2 records in the NL. So we're going to see exactly what this team is made of. And there's enough of a sample size to say at this point, not to be negative, this is who they are. There's enough of that sample size.
I'm with that.
But, however, as we've seen, especially in recent years, if you can get hot at the right time and carry that momentum toward the end of September into October, the sky becomes the limit.
Yeah.
And with the expectations being lower, then you could do some things. But I don't want to give this Dodger team that out yet. They got to show me a lot over these next 19 games. That's what I wanted to leave you with.
All right. I wanted to leave us with a shout out to Mookie Betts. He has really been one of their most consistent and hot hitters finally. I mean, we talked about it a lot, just kind of how disappointing he was, but he's on a heater. He's batting well over 300 over his last 30 games, 319 average to be exact. He's got 5 home runs over his last 119 at bats. So some power is coming back. Had a home run today. He's done fairly well on the road stretch as well. One of the few bright spots, so I hope we get to see that carry over for Mookie Betts in October, because that's going to be big, because this lineup through and through has kind of had a lot of holes in it. But if Ohtani can keep up what he's been doing, Betts, obviously, we just talked about the heater. Freeman seems to have had some big home runs as well. He's their Mr. Reliable. Now we just need to see the rest of the guys step it up, whether it's Teoscar or Muncy when he comes back off the IL, Edman, hopefully, Will Smith gets healthy. This is still a really good lineup. It's just a matter of execution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, I wonder if they could use a guy like Jake Taylor, played by the great Tom Berenger from Major League, to go into that clubhouse and say, well, I guess there's only one thing left to do. With Dorn responding, what's that? Win the whole fucking thing. And then he has that little smile that.
Give Chris a follow on his social media at Chris_Camello. You can check out his show he does every week, usually on Wednesdays, The Outlet Forum. He talks Lakers and Los Angeles sports. Our Los Angeles Rams are 1-0. We're looking good out there. Rams house, baby. Thank you guys for listening to the Incline Dodgers podcast, and give us a follow, whether it's on our Spotify or Apple podcast, or if you watch the YouTube stream, leave a comment below and hit that like button and subscribe. But we're out. It's Sunday. It was a fun day of sports, one of the best days of the year. Go Dodgers.